when we sit down as a family at the table, my daughter sits at the head of the table. I'm not really certain why that worked out the way it did, but that's how it works. I sit to her right, her mom sits to her left. Fletcher is one step down on the left, except on holidays. On holidays, I sit at the head of the table, and then my mother-in-law and father-in-law on either side, and then the kids, and then my wife at the other end of the table. Maybe she's at the head of the table, maybe I'm at the foot of the table, I don't know. But that's how my family sits at the table when we share a meal. I would guess that you have the place that you usually sit when eating a meal, and that's not always set. That'll change based upon whether it's holidays, friends over, whether you it just kind of shifts. And there are such habits that develop when eating meals. If you're over for a low-key meal, we're gonna go grab your own silverware. There's the silverware drawer. Whereas if it's a formal meal, a holiday, I think it's Sophia who usually sets the table in that situation. But we all just have these practices that develop. Who gets the drinks? Who clears the table? Who washes the dishes? Who eats the leftovers? Usually I eat the leftovers. But how we eat is a matter that is of some importance. It's something that we look at how Jesus eats and how does he invite and welcome and bring people together, and looking at his habits and looking at our habits to see how we might learn from him. There are times when Jesus just eats with everyone, feeds the 5,000. Later on, and Luke tells us he feeds the 5,000, then he feeds the 4,000. He creates wine at a wedding, creating somewhere between 90 and 120 gallons of wine. So that feast, that gathering of this huge gathering can continue together. So there are times when Jesus has a way of eating. It's just a lot of people where everyone is welcome. And probably not a lot of deep discussions, but probably a good time. There are times when Jesus eats where it's a small group, just his disciples. And they probably have the way that they eat together, their usual patterns, their usual habits. And that leads to a different level and depth of discussion. And that's good. I mean, it's different tables, different meals, different ways of eating. In our seeking to follow in the footsteps of Jesus, I think it's important to acknowledge that following Jesus includes both. It includes how we eat when we get as many people together just to have a good time. Just to say, you know what, to follow Jesus is to be able to feast and to enjoy ourselves and to bring people together. And there are times when it's a small group and the conversation is deep or challenging or hard or rigorous, honest, vulnerable, right? I think the reason I think about our habits of eating is because we do live in a culture that makes it hard to get together to eat because we tend to obsess about, is my house clean enough? And it's worth thinking about to get together to eat with someone. There's the respect of inviting someone over to eat and putting out our finest and dressing up and cleaning everything and saying, I'm going to give you my finest because you are worth my finest. And that is a way to invite people over. I think we also need to acknowledge there's another way of respecting people. There's the respect of saying, I'm going to invite you into my real life. And sometimes my real life is ordering a pizza from Casey's, ripping off the top of the box and tearing that piece of cardboard into 4 pieces, and there you go. I got 4 plates. I got a pizza. I'll hand you a piece of pizza on a piece of cardboard, and this is how I eat sometimes. Like, that's just real. That's another way to respect people. I think the key there is to tell people what they're getting into, right? Just to be able to say, like, I want to have you over, and this is not a fancy meal. I just want to catch up. I want to sit down, and I'm just going to order a pizza, and just lower the tension and let it be real. I think we need to ponder doing that more often amongst ourselves as a church family, how family eats. I think there is another way that it can be challenging to have people together, and that's a sense of, like, once you sit down to eat with someone, you're going to be there for a bit. Like, you check up, you call someone, that's 5 minutes on the phone. You have a cup of coffee, that's like a half hour. That's at least how I schedule it. If I'm going to eat a meal with someone, I'm giving them an hour, at least, if not an hour and a half. And to say I'm going to give someone that amount of time is good. It also is dependent upon, we got to have something to talk about. And so let me just tell you that I've been gathering people to eat for a long time now. And if you're willing to ask questions, people are interesting. Tell me about your high school. Tell me about your first car. Tell me about how did you meet each other. Tell me about what was it like to, when you had kids, how did that work? Or man, you kids moved out of the house. Well, grandkids, like you have grandkids. Well, how did that? People have stories to tell. Just got to ask them. I'm firmly convinced that one of the reasons people listen to Jesus is because he ate with them. Whether it was huge crowds or something small, Jesus ate with them. And on Maundy Thursday, the day we look at how Jesus eats with the Passover with his disciples, I think it's important to note, eating with and like Jesus is a good thing. It is something worthy of cultivating. Amen.